when we were hiring at Wired, I would hire the people, someone who was enthusiastic versus someone who was really, really smart. And it was because that enthusiasm was that positivity, the embrace of the open-mindedness. When you're enthusiastic, you're pressing forward. You are embracing the things. You're not trying to find what doesn't work. You're focusing on strength.
Good morning, good life. Welcome back to the show. I am so over the moon excited about this episode, but in order to do this right, I need you to feel the same level of excitement that I have about having this gentleman on the show today. I have an amazing guest for you. His name is Kevin Kelly. I'm going to get into his bio. We're going to chat with him. It's going to be fabulous. He's got a new book out that I've absolutely adore. I feel like we're kindred spirits as authors at the moment because the motivation behind his book was very similar to the motivation behind my latest book. But anyway, neither here nor there. The reason why I'm doing this little preliminary chat with you before we dive into the interview is because Kevin Kelly wrote a little essay called 1,000 True Fans, and it changed the game many, many, many years ago. And I had to make sure that if you're tuning into this episode, that you fully understand the scope of what it means to have 1,000 true fans. I very strongly encourage you to read the essay. It is at kk.org. You can also Google 1,000 true fans and you will find this thing. It'll show right up at the top of search results. But I wanted to read a little bit of it to you to kind of set the tone. It's one of those things that once you hear it, it gets you excited. It gets you thinking bigger about your little empire that you're creating and how it's going to make the difference in your life. And you can go on and read the entire thing, and there's an updated version, and you can see all of it on the site. But I really think you're going to get the most out of this podcast today if I give you this little teaser as to Kevin's methodology and thought process behind what it means to have 1,000 true fans. So without further ado, here is just a little bit from the beginning of the essay 1,000 True Fans on Kevin Kelly's website. To be a successful creator, you don't need millions. You don't need millions of dollars or millions of customers, millions of clients, or millions of fans. To make a living as a craftsperson, photographer, musician, designer, author, animator, app maker, entrepreneur, or inventor, you need only thousands of true fans. A true fan is defined as a fan that will buy anything you produce. These diehard fans will drive 200 miles to see you sing. They will buy the hardback and paperback and Audible versions of your book. They will purchase your next figurine, sight unseen. They will pay for the best of DVD version of your free YouTube channel. They will come to your chef's table once a month. If you have roughly 1,000 of true fans like this, also known as super fans, you can make a living. If you are content to make a living, but not a fortune. Here's how the math works. You need to meet two criteria. First, you have to create enough each year that you can earn on average $100 profit from each true fan. That is easier to do in some arts and businesses than others, but it is a good creative challenge in every area because it is always easier and better to give your existing customers more than it is to find new fans. Second, you must have a direct relationship with your fans. That is, they must pay you directly. You get to keep all of their support, unlike the small percent of their fees you might get from a music label, publisher, studio, retailer, or other intermediate. If you keep the full $100 of each true fan, then you only need 1,000 of them to earn $100,000 per year. That's a living for most folks. 1,000 customers is a whole lot more feasible to aim for than 1 million fans. Millions of paying fans is not a realistic goal to shoot for, especially when you're starting out. But 1,000 fans is doable. You might even be able to remember 1,000 names. If you added one new true fan per day, it'd only take you a few years to gain 1,000. Okay, that was just a few paragraphs from this essay. He goes on to talk a little bit more about how 1,000 true fans is not an absolute number, and you can adjust upward or downward and just look at the math. This is exactly what gets me going. When you think about the different aspects of building revenue streams into your life, building a business, building a side hustle, building a part-time job, whatever, and thinking about what is the basic math here and not making it such a big thing that consumes you, overwhelms you, and doesn't let you even start. I love this stuff. This is just, it gets me so excited. So I knew you were going to enjoy that. It's going to tee up my conversation with Kevin Kelly in just a minute. So you will really thoroughly enjoy this conversation. But I wanted to make sure that you heard that first, because I know so many of you right now are trying to figure out, where are we headed? What's this road that we're going down? And is it one I'm choosing? And if you feel like it's a little bit overwhelming and you're not sure what you're able to do, I hope this made you feel a little bit more capable in what's possible for you. And just so you know, this is exactly what we talk about at goodmorninggoodlife.tv. It is my premium content portal where I help people design the life they want with work on their terms. So if you're ready to transition from maybe a full-time job that is just not doing it for you anymore, so that you can be the leader of your family and be the influencer of your life by creating work with a service-based business that helps you to actually be there for your family and make the decisions about your schedule that allows all of that to be possible. That's what goodmorninggoodlife.tv is all about. So I highly recommend you check it out before the doors close. We are going to be making massive upgrades this summer to the membership. And so if you're in early on, it's going to be a banger of a deal for you. So check that out, goodmorninggoodlife.tv. Now, we are so ready. It is time to get into my interview with the one and only Kevin Kelly. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm so excited for our guest today. It is the first time I'm ever meeting him, but it feels like one of those relationships you've had for a long time because of the magic of the internet. Not only is he a multi-best-selling author of books, including The Inevitable, Out of Control, and his latest, which I'm the most excited about. It was so good, so excited that I got an advance copy. I just went through it in a couple of hours. Excellent advice for a living, which is already coming back with rave reviews from everyone that's reading it. He's also had a little hand in a little media outlet that maybe you've heard of. It's Wired. Co-founding Wired back in 1993. He's still their senior maverick over there. He's also co-chair of the Long Now Foundation, which is a membership organization that champions long-term thinking. And if that's not enough, he's also the founder of the popular Cool Tools website, where he's reviewed tools daily for 20 years. So that's just a little bit of his extensive bio. My personal favorite detail from his career is a little essay that he wrote called 1,000 True Fans. It was popularized by Tim Ferriss. I know it was featured in one of Tim's books, but I feel like I may have seen him share it a little bit before Tools of Titans came out. But it was one of the most groundbreaking, simple exercises that went on to become probably one of the greatest blog posts that's been written ever in the last, let's say, 15 years or however long blog posts have been around. It has inspired creatives, entrepreneurs, and experts like me to build their own little empire. So thank you so much, Kevin Kelly, for being on the show today.
Oh, it's just such a delight to be here. I'm really looking forward to this. I appreciate the honor.
So I'm going to go ahead and brief my audience a little bit more on 1,000 True Fans, because I don't want to spend all our time just going through it.
Yeah.
If they have not read it, It is, I've clearly talked it up enough. They need to read it. But I'm going to give a little bit of a synopsis prior to having you on today. So people are fully briefed. I feel like you've probably met so many people up to this point that sound like me and are saying to you, Kevin, you were right. All it really took was 1,000 true fans to get to what the vision of what I wanted for myself or my life or my little business, my little empire. I didn't need the huge thing. I didn't need this huge operation. I needed something that was going to build the life that I wanted. That's all it took. Would you say you've also met quite a few people that don't get it? Like for whatever reason, even a number like 1,000, which almost sounds too feasible in today's world, where you hear about people having millions and millions of subscribers and followers on the different platforms today. Do you meet people today who still just don't get what it takes to have 1,000 true fans, to the point where they can't even seem to find they have one?
I haven't found that mode of failure. There's other modes of, or the theory breaks down. What I often find is that people who have tried it, hoping to succeed, but haven't had success. And that, I think, comes from a caveat that I put in the original piece, which is this approach, this kind of path. It may not be for everybody, because, in fact, it does require a lot of work dealing with your fans. You have to engage with them. You're doing the whole thing, and that doesn't suit everybody, right? And there are artists, creators, who don't want to deal with fans at all. They just want to paint all day long or whatever it is. And so it turns out that they're not exactly suited to this venue, and so they try it, and it doesn't quite work for them. I haven't found anybody who doesn't want to even try it or doesn't believe it, but it is bounded by the fact that it does require a certain kind of temperament, maybe even, or willingness to engage with fans on an ongoing basis in a very deep and real way. And that's part of the formula, is that you have to interact with your fans and treat them like true fans. And so, so what I've changed my mind a little bit about is saying, yes, and there are people who graduate in a certain sense, and they start that way, and they move on to other things, and that's fine too. So I would say this is a great place, a great way to start, and it may not be where you want to end up, but there's probably no better way to really get going than to give this a try. And if it doesn't work, that's fine. But it is a viable path that you should consider.
And I appreciate that you put it that way, because I think you do tend to get caught up, right, between the one and the many. And you're like, where am I in between? And on some level, it almost sounds like what you're saying is get ready to play a little bit of customer service here, because that's basically it, right? You're basically saying, like, I care about the individual that's in my X number of true fans, because I know that if I make them feel that impact, then they're going to be the reason that it could potentially get a bit more exponential.
Yes, but I mean, the premise of this, of course, is that with new technologies, we have the ability to interact directly with our fans. I have a new book out, Excellent Advice for Living, published by Penguin Viking. They've been around forever. They have no customers. They don't know who their customers are. They have no engagements. When you buy the book at the bookstore, they don't know who it is. They don't have any engagements with their customers directly, if you can believe that. So that was the old model. But the new model is that with new technology, we can have direct engagement with your customers, and that with that, you lower the number and scale that you actually need. But there's an obligation, or there's just the fact that you have to engage with them at some level. In my own experience, whatever emails and addresses you have, they decay at the rate of 5% a year, right? I mean, just to keep it alive, you have to engage with them. And so that is a role that's maybe a little different than what people who want to write songs or who are going to do a little gizmo startup. And so there's another repertoire in your part of your repertoire in terms of the skills that you need to run that. And you have to kind of be ready for that and willing to do that. And many people find it incredibly invigorating because you have direct contact. They give you wonderful feedback or critical feedback, but they give you feedback and you get that sense of being important and needed. Others doesn't work for them. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to deal with these guys again. So we have better tools for doing that these days, and we can keep improving those tools that will allow us. But you should know and be aware that it's an option, and that's what I always cast this as. This is a choice. It's not the only way. I'm not saying everything goes this way. It may be that you scale up to the extent where it becomes less important, and that would be great. I publish books, self-published books have true fans, and then I'll publish books like this, and that's depending on what the thing is. And so it's another option, and that's the best way I think about it. But it's an option that's really available to someone starting out, and it's a great way to begin.
I just want to go just one layer deeper on this, because I think people have to remember the title of the essay, and they can really unpack it when they read more. It's True Fans. And that's such a big piece of this, because we're now seeing a big conflict with what we build and how we engage with people online and how that's affecting our mental health. Right. So to your point just a few minutes ago about their feedback, when you're able to wrap your mind around, this is a true fan. This is somebody who bought my first product. This is somebody who's signed up on the wait list. This is somebody who's always there. This is a true fan. So when they give me feedback, and it may be critical, that you can really distinguish that as different, where a lot of people who are like, oh, I can't deal with the fans because I would rather be one of these artists that doesn't. It's more just chalking up all the comments in the world that are coming from your viral whatevers as your true. They're not all your true fans. They're passing interest finders. And so noticing the difference between the two, I think, might remind someone that you may be perfect for this exercise. You may not be that artist that wants to be at arm's length and have an intermediary, as you talk about. You may be okay when you wrap your mind around, it's the true fans where we need to zero in the attention, because they're telling us how to succeed. You just said it perfectly. I 100%. And if I rewrote that essay, I would rewrite it to emphasize what you've just said. The more emphasis on distinguishing your true fans from the, flyby, shoot fans who are just there to kind of make trouble and to show off. So, and what we would like to have is even better tools to help us identify the true fans. And that's something that kind of an addendum that to the original essay was this idea that one of the consequences or correlations of this idea of 1,000 true fans is that in a world of, we now have kind of a global economy. We now have the ability to reach around the world with whatever we're doing in potential. And that, with the billions of people in the world, there are even a 1 in a million niche idea will have 1,000 potential fans. Like, if your idea is so strange and weird and obscure that only 1 in a million people can identify with it, you still can find or have 1,000 true fans. The difficulty, the challenge is making that match, is finding them in the world of several billion and them finding you. And what we want still, we don't quite have, are tools that allow that matchmaking to identify the really true fans in your 1 in a million crazy idea. And so we still don't have. And when I wrote the original 1,000 True Fans, we didn't have the technology of Kickstarter. Right? It was theoretical. Like, well, if we can do this, and so we can imagine some tools that are still needed, and that is this matchmaking thing, where you can find them. And I would add, to your point,
tools to help us distinguish between flyby fans and the really true fans.
Yeah, it's funny because it feels like Patreon.com was like invented like as an idea from your essay in a lot of ways, because it mobilized so many creators. But well, thank you for indulging that, because that I have gone back to that essay time and time and time again. Every time I feel like I'm a little lost in the business or a little lost as a creator, to just remember who am I talking to here, and who does this actually matter to? So anyway, huge fan, huge true fan of yours. And so when I found out on Twitter, you kind of posted on Twitter, I got a book coming out. Anybody want a podcast? Let's chat. And I was like, whoa, what is this book? And got in touch with your team. It was a Kevin Kelly book. So they were sending it to me and I was going to read it. Okay. I really didn't brief myself further than that. So I get this book and I'm like, I'm starting it and I'm like, oh my gosh. This is the easiest book in the world to read. I'm so excited. And I was like, honey, and I just kept reading lines from excellent advice for living to him. And he was like, this is a good book. I was like, I know, you never know what you're going to get next. So can you just explain a little bit about it and the inspiration as to why it came to be? Well,
it's an easy to read book because it's mostly just 400 little tweets, we'll call them. Oh, they didn't start off that way. There were little proverbs, adages, just little tiny things that were just a sentence long. And what I hope to do is kind of distill an entire book and stories of advice into a little sentence. And I have always collected little quotes because I love the compression and the distillation. I find that making them memorable enabled me to actually make them into habits. And so I'd like to think of these as reminders because, in fact, a lot of the wisdom is not new. It's ancient, and I'm just reminding people about them and trying to put it into my own words. So these little reminders are to help us form habits about, elevating the good, focusing on the true and beautiful, and ways in which we can kind of make our lives better. And so it started off as me collecting them for myself and then realizing at some point, I have three kids who are now young adults, and we did not give them very much advice in terms of the preaching. This is not our habit. I call myself, we were submarine parents instead of helicopter parents. We were kind of like, we were there, they needed it, but I didn't go to anything when they were in college. We would send them off. Go. Don't write us. Don't call us. Right? Just go. And so, but I felt that I felt that I would have been better if I'd heard this advice. So I decided to start writing these down and give them to my kids. And I found that once I got going, and I had a lot to say, and I would do this every birthday, making a bunch more and having them shared, and they kind of went viral. So I decided to collect them together because. You can read one or two on the internet, but if you want the whole bunch, it's hard to kind of find them. And I thought there would be something about having it handy as a book. And that was the origin, was literally advice that I wished someone had told me when I was younger, because some of it it would have been better if I had known about it earlier. Just even parenting, there were things that I wish I'd heard.
Absolutely. It's kind of funny too, right? Because you get so much information today that you would think it's better for everyone, but at the same time, there's still only so much you can take in, and you're going to absorb something so differently just depending on when it hits you and how it hits you and who delivers it. So I love that it was originally sort of motivated for your kids, because as a new mom, I'm always thinking like, oh gosh, I need to make sure she knows all these things but because they matter to me now, right? If you don't mind, I would like to go through some of my favorites that are in the book. Okay.
I love to hear it, and here's the reason why I love to hear it is because in doing this kind of frequently now, there's been no overlap between what people. I can almost bet that the ones that you're going to suggest probably have been suggested for the first time.
Oh my God! I love it. Okay, so we have to start with one that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, I had actually already identified that this was something that I think I needed to work on for myself. But the way you said it, I was like, I still don't think I've fully received it. And this is hitting me like a ton of bricks. Okay, it's early on in the book. You wrote, being enthusiastic is worth 25 IQ points. This is such a struggle for me. I think in general, I've had this pattern in my life where I was just trying to like play it cool all the time. Like just, you know, you just try to fit in. You just try to like make like, oh, really? You wrote a book? That's cool. I have 3. That's awesome. So you just kind of just like go with the flow. But there is really something so profound in the connection you can have with someone for just being enthusiastic for them or being enthusiastic about what's going on with you in a really vulnerable way and not in a braggy way. So I guess like what was the motivation behind this one and how further can I teach myself to be lazy?
I was actually thinking in a kind of a slightly different angle when we were hiring at Wired. I would hire the people, someone who was enthusiastic versus someone who was really, really smart. And it was because that enthusiasm was that positivity, that the embrace of the open-mindedness, the when you're enthusiastic, you're pressing forward. You are embracing the things. You're not trying to find what doesn't work. You're focusing on strengths. Okay, and we have a choice to like, you know. You can kind of focus on your weaknesses or you can focus on your strength. You actually need to deal with the weaknesses, but you definitely want to focus on your strength. And that's what enthusiasm is about. And when you're trying to move things forward, that often counts more than smartness. I mean, we might get into AI, but one of my critiques about the people who are the doomers in AI is they overestimate the value of smartness. Like you put a human being and a lion in a cage. Who's going to win? It's not the smartest of the two. Smartness is way over. There's so many other ingredients that we need to accomplish things that make them happen in the world. That yeah, smart is good, but it's not. That doesn't trump other qualities. And enthusiasm to me is one of those other qualities that can often be more important than intelligence. And so I'd rather have somebody who is very, very enthusiastic and maybe not the smartest person in the room. And so that, and then, you know, and I think there's also something biographical about it as well. I am not the smartest person in the room, but I can be the most enthusiastic, and I know that I can contribute that with my enthusiasm.
Yeah, and I love that because it is such a hit on what fear is in me when I feel I need to be the smartest person in the room, because that must be what everyone wants right now, right? It's that fear of not knowing. It's that fear of I don't know. It's that fear that like everyone else is up to speed and brilliant and I'm the wrong person in this room. And this is such a great practical thing. Look, if you aren't the smartest person in the room, be the most enthusiastic because you're going to bring value. It is almost a surety that you will be memorable in that room.
Right. No, useful even too. Not even just showing off. But there's another bit of advice in the book that says something similar, which is that oftentimes a person who can communicate well can prosper more than someone who is really smart. So you can have smart people who can't communicate well, and you have people who communicate well who aren't smart. And it turns out that you really want to be the latter because it's much easier to improve your communication skills than your IQ. Okay? And so, again, this goes back to this kind of overrating of IQ by people who like to think. And so it's not often that it's the gating factor. There's usually so many other things about how well you work with people, how well you communicate, your level of enthusiasm, your positivity versus negativity. All those things are probably much more important in actually getting things accomplished and becoming who you want to be, for that matter.
Yes. Okay. So that was very strong, right? I mean, that was early in the book.
Right.
I'm like, I'm in for all of these. Okay. So this one I feel like pairs well with it because if we are kind of like, okay, don't have to be the smartest. The question I get the most from my, women entrepreneurial or aspirationally entrepreneurial, thinking about leaving their job, thinking about going into another field, thinking about building something of their own, is this concept around what do I need, right? What skills and what experience? And so in this particular proverb you wrote, experience is overrated. Most astounding accomplishments were done by people doing them for the first time. Therefore, when hiring, hire for aptitude and attitude and then train for skills. Is there something in this, whether you're being hired or you're just trying to figure out your own way, there's something to this that how much preparation from experience and skills do you really need when you're just going to learn the work doing the job?
And especially if you are doing something in a new area, which you should be. Okay, I mean, the whole, the super advantage that startups have and entrepreneurs is the fact that they can enter into new areas that big corporations cannot afford. They literally cannot afford to do that, because anywhere new is going to be basically a small market, probably unproven, probably high risk, lots of failure. And so it's economically not worth it for them to go there. And so the entrepreneurs, it's the same problem. It's a very dangerous place, but they don't have any alternative. Right? You kind of have to go there. So if you're in this new area, by definition, there's going to be less experience available. And that's to your advantage, because, and this is why, how old was, all the people making the early computers, they were all just kids, kind of, basically. And if you want a shocking story, look at the invention of the United States and the Constitution. They were all written by 20-year-olds. If you see the age, exactly right. But they had no experience in writing constitutions, or inventing republics. And so So when you're starting off there, all the things that we normally associate with success, experience, capitalization, deep networks, all these, there are actually disadvantages. Because the temptation of the big companies is that they want to buy a solution, but the entrepreneurs don't have enough money, so they have to invent a solution. Okay? And so if you're in this territory where there's not much happening, there are no experts, that's hugely advantageous to you without a lot of experience and stuff. And so I would say this is going back to the overall advantage about not being the best, but being the only. Try to head to those places, because rather than trying to competing, like if you're trying to make, I'm going to make another OS, or I'm going to make another social media platform. No, you're not. You're going to lose. Or I'm going to make another whatever it is. I'm going to make the better sneaker. No. If you want to be going somewhere where there isn't a name for what it is that you're trying to do, and therefore the lack of experience is actually an advantage.
So I feel like they're all just such good segues into each other, because we're making those determinations based on others. Sometimes the feeling is like, I should have done that first.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that could have been me. And so that's why I'm going to create my, whatever. Okay. This one just all by itself could mean anything, but I feel like is close. Trust me, there is no them. This is my favorite line in the whole world, because I'm always looking at people like, who is them? But what you just said, they said that who's they? The meteorologist? Or is they the Facebook group? Or who is they? Is there a they? And why is everybody referring to they?
Yeah. And just to head off,
or them, I should say.
Yeah, just to head off the comments. There are such things as systematic prejudice, systematic discrimination. But even with that systematic level, there's no they there. Okay, there's no them, a person, the people who are there. There is in the system, there can be these sense of things that you have to work with as a system. The system can be biased, but there really, even then, there is not a them or they, a person who is, well, you're the they. So that is a very hard thing, and it means in some ways of, as I said in another tip in the book, which is things can be your responsibility even though they're not your fault. It's a way. It's like, yeah, there's no fault of your own of how you were born and your circumstances. They're not your fault, but they're still your responsibility. And this is kind of acknowledging the fact that we are responsible for things that aren't our fault, and that's kind of a very hard thing to kind of ingest and to live. But that is sort of you'll go further. You'll go further with that, and if you are quick to assume responsibilities and very quick to give credit. Again, there are limits, and people can struggle with this, but this is the general bias, I think, of the universe in terms of the way it's structured.
And I really appreciate that comparison. It does seem like everyone's just trying to collect the necessary jury that they need at any given time, right? That it's like, well, this collection of people is what's going to make me right now. I was just having a conversation yesterday about somebody's perception coming out of college. And I know you were thinking of young people quite a bit with this book as well. Somebody, let's say, graduating college, thinking about the workforce they're going into. And just based on the college experience that they went through, that they maybe lost a little bit of the experience because of the pandemic. And during that time, they did a lot of remote schoolwork, and a lot of people were doing remote work. But now that we're coming out of that, there's this misconception of like what the workforce is going to look like now, because there's a lot of people going back to work, because now a lot of huge organizations are saying, we lost a lot of productivity. So and this output is just not where it needs to be. And people are just looking at their time freedom completely differently. We're all collecting these juries of, well, they're doing this and they have this. And so I must be able to, instead of really getting to the heart of communicating with people and navigating the world to our own experience to figure out what's actually possible.
Yeah. It's again, I think we're often tempted by other people's movies, and one of the ways I like to say is that you kind of want to invent a new way to be successful. That's sort of, each of us should be doing that, and the people that your followers, your fans, your clients, we all should be kind of not trying to make someone else's movie, but to make our own movie. We're not starring someone else's bestseller, but we're defining success ourselves in a new way. And that's, again, the opportunity that the startups have and young people have and people who are starting off, is that you get to invent a new definition of success. If you're not trying to, again, go to the jury and have them define the success for you. But that process of trying to become the best and not the only is a lifelong process. And here's the weird paradox. There are lots of paradoxes in the world. One is that the more you give, the more you get. It doesn't make any sense, but that's how it works. And the second one is that the only way that you can be truly yourself, you can't do it by yourself. You need everybody else in the whole world to help you be unique. That's so strange, but that's the way it is. And so yeah, you need people around you, but it's your job to kind of define the success. They can help you do that, and you need them to do that, but you don't want to take their definition of success.
Okay, another one that goes well with that is just showing up. Just showing up. 99% of success is just showing up. In fact, most success is just persistence. Is that the hard part these days?
It's so hard. But believe me, the more you elevate your time horizon, the more you'll be successful. And that's in part because the best kind of success is iterative, cumulative, where you are accumulating a little bit over time, maybe only 1%. And if you take a long view, that longer view enables you, that compounding enables you to overcome fairly significant setbacks, which they are inevitable, going to be, and downturns and whatnots. And you can kind of ride over them just by that slow accumulation of persisting over time. And it is remarkable how much you can accomplish in 10 years when you look back, if you're not in a hurry. And by the way, that's another reason why you want to aim toward being the only and not the best, is that you can take your time. Because if you really are doing something that few others can do, isn't competition. There's nobody. You have to look over your shoulder because they can't and don't want to do this.
And I like that you've mentioned that one a few times. Don't be the best, be the only. And I feel like that's a way of reminding people that perfect is the enemy of done.
Right.
I feel like I find I have perfectionism issues that I'm always working
right,
on,
right.
but I also realize that the places I've gotten better that I just get to done. And I definitely didn't make dinner perfectly, but it's done. And so anyone who would like to share, it's like, but it's done. And so, yes, I could have done it better. Yes, I could have become a master chef, but that's not my thing. But I take, and there are just places where you just need to be okay with done. And then if you do, you're probably going to get further than most because everyone else is too busy picking everything apart, whether it's themselves or others. You end up being the only, which is the persistence piece that you're...
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I also had a bit of advice saying things don't need to be perfect to be wonderful. Think weddings, right? They don't have to be perfect. And so lots of things can be wonderful that are imperfect. And so, the idea of kind of great artistship, and usually things are abandoned. I mean, this was true even like Wired. We did a monthly magazine, and it was always just astounding to me that every single issue is as if it was like a near-death experience, where it was like we weren't sure. It was miraculous we got done. And talking to people in the film industry is the same thing. No matter how many films they made, every single one is just a miracle that it was done and it was shipped. It was abandoned. It was always abandoned. It was like, and so here's a rule of thumb that I learned about doing this, making books and stuff. Every single one's abandoned. Is this, which is that when you have a large complex problem or project, you cannot control the work. The work is infinite. It's bottomless. Even a podcast, the amount of prep you could do, it's bottomless. But the only thing you can control is the time. And so the way I kind of structure it is like, I'm going to write the best book I can in a year. So it's the time that you can control. It's like I'm going to do the best meal I can in an hour, or I'm going to do the best podcast I can with half a day, whatever it is. And so you are managing the time rather than the work, because the work is always infinite.
I love that you said that. I mean, we talk a lot about Parkinson's law around here, so that really hit the nail. Okay, this is one of our favorite subjects because a lot of people in my community struggle with this. No is an acceptable answer, even without a reason.
Yes, I learned that from Stuart Brand, my mentor. I should have said it there. You have to do it politely. Absolutely must be polite, gentle, and there's another aspect to it. So if you do it that, you can say no, but you have to do it gently and politely. I mean, you just can't say no, but you have to say, no.
So I guess that's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
What does Kevin Kelly's version of gentle but not overly women in particular, overly explanatory and have to come up with every reason why my life is way too busy for you to be proposing anything to me at this moment? Like, what is the line, and how, and I think, I hope it's probably something to do with just take it off of you. Like we assume so much of the.
I understand that too, and that struggle. There might be another version of it, which I learned from Stuart Brand, my mentor, that he was really, really good at. And let me see if I can say this. I should turn this into another bit of advice. But it's he would always make his no like a favor. He was doing you a favor by saying no. Okay?
That's an art.
It's an art. Doing you a favor. And the way I have learned to phrase it is like, I'm unable to give the attention that your project deserves. And so I have to say no.
Oh, you make it a major compliment, like a
Right.
buttery.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, this is so important. I can't give it to you. So therefore, I'm doing you a favor by saying no because I would mess it up, whatever it is. And so this is idea of like, no, it's in your interest that I say no.
Yeah. Yeah, I've gotten to the point where when I'm completely lost, I just think of the moment in Friends when Phoebe's like, oh, I wish I could, but I don't want to. and it's like, oh, I wish I could say that.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to lie and say I wish I could because I don't.
No. Yeah, I know. I just say, I'm able to give it the kind of attention it deserves. I have to say no, or I will say no. And so that's you don't.
And that's the truth.
That's the truth.
Like there's not this manufacture of reasons.
No.
It's like no, really, you understand the work and the time management and how it deserves somebody who's going to be fully invested to the degree.
Right.
I love that. Okay. I want to ask you one I did not understand.
Okay. Fail mode. Okay.
No. I'm excited because I'm sure it's obvious, but don't bother asking a barber if you need a haircut.
Yes.
Pay attention to incentives.
You didn't understand? Really? The barber's always going to tell you need a haircut.
Right? What's the incentives piece? I'm so confused.
Oh, well, because he has incentives to say yes. So if you ask, if you're going to ask someone for advice about whether you should buy this home, if there's a real estate broker or whatever, they're going to say yes. Because their incentive, because they want you to buy the home. So like if you were asking, someone to do something or whatever, be clear about their incentives to understand their response.
Yeah, there's going to be a bias there. This is always my thinking around like a financial planner.
Yeah. What's their incentive?
Like, who else am I going to ask?
Right.
But they have incentives
Exactly.
to give me the answers they're giving me.
Right. So
maybe I did get it.
Yeah. So you want to ask, like, in those kind of cases, you can ask competitors, and that's when I'm trying to evaluate something, it's like, okay, let me ask someone who might have incentive to be critical of that, like a competitor or something like that. What's their opinion about it? Oh, then you get a very different answer. And so so just kind of pay attention to the incentives to make sure that they're not always in line with the respondent, what they want to say. So, but yeah, asking a barber, do I need a haircut? They always say yes.
Sit down.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'm going to, this final one, it should hit everyone in the little heartstrings. But I think it was a very, very important piece of advice because we all know this, but we forget it in our day-to-day lives and we still chip away at the achievements and the achievements and the achievements. Before you are old, attend as many funerals as you can bear and listen. Nobody talks about the departed's achievements. The only thing people will remember is what kind of person you were while you were achieving. Who you were while you were achieving.
It's true. It's
It's
true.
like, when was the last time somebody sat down and wrote an obituary writing down every accolade somebody got? Because we know in that moment, that's not what it was.
No, it's very sobering. I mean, again, as we're all busy doing our things, working to make things happen and achieve things, you have to kind of remember that, people are going to remember how you made them feel, not what you did. And so that was a wake-up call for me. It's like, you mean they're not going to remember the books I wrote? No, they're not. And by the way, if you really want to be something sobering, this may be more than you're ready for. But in four generations, not a single person will remember who you were at all. So that's something else to keep in mind in terms of making the most of what it is that we have in our short ride. Why not be nice? You can't be too nice.
And it's just good perspective, because we have to remember how teeny tiny of a speck of a thing that we are on this planet, and how we're living a human experience, and that it's so much more than that. So I think that that's really important for us to think about on a regular basis. You do approach people differently. You look at life differently. You handle life differently.
We're insignificant against the stars, but our response to that is actually to make art.
That's beautiful. Oh, challenge accepted for some.
Right.
Hard to actually execute, I think. For most
It is.
Okay.
It is because and by the way, another piece of advice in the book is that saints and superheroes don't make art. Mother Teresa, Superman, they weren't making art because they're perfect. Art comes from our own imperfections, our own brokenness, and so the fact that you're not perfect is a foundation to making something good. And I use art in the broadest sense. Whether you're making a new product, a new business, that's all art in my perspective.
Yeah, I think if you reframe what you are really doing to leave a mark, it's art.
Yeah.
It's not a robot.
Right, exactly.
It's not perfection. So, okay, I could go on and on and on. I really would love to, but I'm not going to, because you have so much more to do with your precious time. And there's so many more that people can read in this book, and they need to pick it up. You guys, this is not only going to be good for you and your family and your friends, your recent graduates. This is great advice. And if they'll take it, you can do everything in your power to make sure that they do. It's the easiest book in the world for them to read. They can flip it open and get something that they need just in that moment, and they will. It's called Excellent Advice for Living. I need to get my hard copy because I just keep swiping through my Kindle and I'm like, it's just not working for me anymore. I need it on my nightstand. So Kevin Kelly, just the gratitude I have for your time today. I really acknowledge you for it, and thank you for this book and for all of the amazing work and impact that you've left on our community. I know that many generations are going to be trying to tell people about you for a long time.
Well, you're too kind. I appreciate that generous compliment, and thank you for sparing some time with me. It was really a blast. I had fun. You're a great conversationalist. I appreciate your interest in the book.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.